Weirding Way Media.
Hello and welcome to episode 90 of the Filmumentaries podcast. This is Jamie Benning talking to you on a cold but sunny day here in London, England. It is November the 17th, 2023. Yeah, this is the 90th episode. I can't quite believe it. When I started this a couple of years ago, I thought I might do 10 episodes and then that would be it. It would be a little 10 episode thing. 90 episodes. Closing in on 100. I will get there. If this is the first time you've listened to the podcast, the remit is all about preserving film history. You can treat this and the 89 episodes that came before it as an archive of film history that can be used to listen to for your entertainment, for research, for your book or podcast or even essay. You have about an hour of film chat ahead of you, and I hope you enjoy it and I hope you come back. There's some great episodes that you've missed if you've only just found it. Have a look back at those 89 episodes. There's some real gems in there. If you're a regular listener, thanks as always for joining me and for all your support. Thanks to the lovely people that already support the podcast via Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jamie Benning. I really do need your help to keep this podcast going. It does take up increasingly more time to do because I'm trying to find guests, I'm doing the research, I'm doing the recordings, I'm paying for the infrastructure to do that as well, doing the interviews themselves, traveling to places sometimes to do the interviews. It is work I love, but it's still work. So if you appreciate my work, then I really appreciate your support. And to make this financially viable, I reckon I need another 35 patrons or so. So if you enjoy the podcast, as I said, or you buy me a pint or a coffee if we were to meet, please consider supporting the podcast. And $12 or your currency equivalent could buy a whole year of podcasts or help support a whole year of podcasts. That's 24 episodes, probably more because I do bonus episodes as I did last month. There are several tiers to choose from on Patreon with several different perks, including videos and merchandise, and you can find all those details on patreon.com/Jamie Benning. You can also support the podcast by buying some clothing adorned with the podcast logo and with some of my Filmumentaries posters. In fact, I'm starting a collaboration with my artist friend Pete Starling. You'll recognise his work from some of the posters on my Filmumentary stuff previously. I've ditched Teespring because after receiving a couple of examples of the merch, I was really appalled at the low quality of the printing on the hoodies and the t-shirts. So I've switched to T-Mill. So now filmumentaries.tmill, that's TEEMILL.com. I've been told they're much better. I'm yet to see a sample. So there are a few designs you can choose from, and that will grow thanks to this collaboration I'm doing with my artist friend Pete Starling. I'll leave links for the Patreon and the shop in the show notes, of course. If you can't support the podcast on either Patreon or on the store, please just share, like, subscribe, review. A review would be really useful. That's a good way of getting it seen by other people, I believe, on Apple in particular. This is a very small podcast. It is literally just me and my laptop and my microphone. And a guest or guests. You can also support the podcast, while I think of it, by heading to Amazon in your region or to JediTimeline.com to buy our amazing book, Return of the Jedi, The Unauthorized Timeline. Forget about the unauthorized bit. I mean, it is unauthorized, but it's still great. You know, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But we just have to say that for legal reasons. It catalogues the entire history of Return of the Jedi from all aspects of production, pre and mid and post production, to the toy lines, the video games, the books, the comics. Check it out. It's a great piece of reference material for you to keep on your shelf there, particularly if you're a podcaster or if you're in the Star Wars space, no pun intended, then this is a book for you. The softcover version is actually currently for sale for £20 on Amazon or your currency equivalent on your local Amazon site, so please check that out. That's the Return of the Jedi, The Unauthorized Timeline. Remember, you can find me on Twitter at JamieSWB, and my profile on there has a link tree link to all my various sites, including my Vimeo channel, where you'll find hours of video for free for you to watch on films like Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's also the YouTube channel where I'm beginning to upload the podcasts. Some of them are just audio only, but increasingly there are video versions. If you are a Patreon on the second tier, you do get the video episodes early if I have the time and if I'm able to do a video recording and I get the permission of the interviewee. So do check out the Filmumentaries YouTube channel as well. So for this episode, number 90, I speak to the creators of the new Robodoc series. It's currently available on streaming here in the UK and on physical media. The UK date is in December 2023. I chat with the directors Chris Griffith and Eastwood Allen, along with the producer Gary Smart. We chat about how the project was conceived and developed, the early Kickstarter that they did, I remember that, back in 2017, how they managed to get so many contributor interviews, the deals they've done to get this huge project across the line. Particularly interesting for those of us that are keen to hear just what it takes to make something like this. I think people don't always realise how difficult this is to do. These guys, they've done some documentaries before. They're not really in the industry, as you'll find out. Some of them have regular day jobs in completely different industries entirely. So here's my conversation with directors Chris and Eastwood and producer Gary, and I'll be back at the end for a bit more jabbering on.
Excuse me, Robo, any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.
Okay, guys, so what was the genesis of this project? How did it come about?
Go on, Gary.
Yeah, so we'd already done a couple of documentaries. We did a documentary on the Hellraiser series, well, the first two films in particular, which obviously we deem as British films, Hellraiser 1 and Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. And then we moved on to a documentary about Fright Night, Tom Holland's Fright Night from 1985. And we also covered a sequel. So we'd gone and filmed that in the States, came back, was in post-production. Eastwood got in touch and got involved then, obviously, in our editing of that, edited the project for us while Chris edited part 2. Did the motion graphics as well. And we're kind of umming and ahhing about our next project. And then it kind of came up, shall we do Robocop? Because Chris was a huge, huge Robocop fan, as is Eastwood. We were kind of told by a few people, no, don't do it. You're never going to be able to do a documentary on that. A book had just come out on the kind of like the legacy per se of the series, which was doing okay. But again, we were told by some people not to do it because that book had come out and already loads had already been said about Robocop over the previous 20 odd years, whatever it was. And then we went to, when we were in LA before, we kind of met with Ed Newmeyer and Chris tell that story, and kind of he encouraged us to do. So that's how it kind of happened. It's kind of simple to a degree. We were told no by somebody, so we said let's do it because we were told no, and that was basically it.
Just resistance. Yeah.
And then 7 years later, we still were doing it. But yeah, so I mean, the lads will chip in obviously because they're probably they're kind of like the backbone of the project, being the super fans. But that's how it kind of really kind of started originally.
I didn't want to cut in then, Gary. That's the quickest and most succinct way you've ever told that story.
Said it enough times.
Oh, well done to you, mate. Yeah, I mean, going on what Gary said, with this chance meeting with Ed Newmeyer, we were shooting Fright Night at the time, and I actually had Ed Newmeyer, who's no longer on Facebook anymore, but this was at a time when he was still lurking around on there, and I'd noticed how he had, he'd posed for photos with some like super fans, and their artwork, certainly in a more candid, candid, I guess, setting than against at conventions. And as ever's the case, Gary always kind of pushes me over the edge in terms of making a decision. And I was like, oh, shall I contact him? I don't know what I'm going to do if I meet him, but, it'll just be great to meet him. So he's like, no, go for it. And so I, like wide-eyed fanboy, I went to message him. And then the tone of the message was something like, hey, Ed, we're in town making a documentary on a film, trying to sound professional. Do you fancy meeting up? I think I told him as well it was Fright Night. And I don't think we heard anything for a couple of days. And then lo and behold, we got a message back. He's like, "Oh yeah, let's go out for a meal." It's like, "Oh, holy shit!" So scrambled to get anything I could find of Robocop. I think I found the vinyl soundtrack in Amoeba over there, to get at least that out of him, assigned, piece of work. And then, during the course of the meal, he made the fatal error of saying, "Oh, you boys should do a documentary on Robocop." Not that wasn't on our minds already. But as soon as he said that, I was like, well, we've obviously got his permission, so let's just go for it. And then I think one of my first protocols after that was because we'd already had our relationship had already started with Eastwood. And I know we obviously had the mutual love, all of us, of Fright Night. And of course, it was like, oh, guess who I just met for a meal? Yeah. And then that's pretty much where that kind of came on then, really. So it was a bit of a rush, really. We were like, doing sort of two things at once. And then, all right, let's commit ourselves to doing Robocop now.
There's nothing quite like being in the middle of a project and deciding to take another one on. I mean, all of our other halves think we're nuts whenever we do these things. Could you just sort of tell me as well, each of you individually, is this your regular day job? Is this what you want to be your regular day job? What is it that you do? And are you fans that are just trying to make the best of what you can get?
I think we started off 10 years ago wanting to be our regular job, and that was 10 years ago when me and Chris first met. I work in education. I work across 8 different schools in the Midlands, and I've worked in education for the last 24 years, I think it is, a long time. So 23 years, sorry. So, obviously we've always wanted to get into production, and into the industry. I think when we started doing the documentaries originally with Leviathan, we kind of were wide-eyed, thinking that was going to be it. We were going to be the UK's equivalent to like Shower Factory and stuff like that, or red shirt pictures, whatever it was over there. And obviously, when we did Leviathan and Brewster, it was very much low-key, under the radar. Obviously, they now thankfully got successful regards to the studios who owned the rights to those. They've embraced them. They haven't sued us. But, at the time, it was very low-key, under the radar, kind of like, just selling on our website and stuff like that. And then now things are changing for us a little bit now in terms of, obviously, Robodoc and Hollywood Dreams, Nightmares and Pennywise. We've had 3 #1 Amazon documentaries. We won an award last year for Pennywise. I know we're going to get some stuff for Robodoc and for Hollywood Dreams. So things are starting to change now for us. And again, I think we're talking around about the pandemic kind of screwed everybody for 2 or 3 years. It helped us to a degree, probably, because obviously we're working from home in our day jobs. All 3 of us were affected by that. Sorry, taking over the limelight, but I work in education. I love education, if anyone's listening, but obviously my ambition is to obviously get into this full time, and especially into TV and film full time.
Go on, Eastwood. You haven't had a chance yet, mate.
That's not good. It's all right. I kind of like listening to you, boy. It's kind of nice. It's better than having a little one screaming in the background downstairs. I've got a baby. So I work as similar to you, Jimmy. I'm an editor by trade. I work for Channel 4, currently running their post team up in Yorkshire. We've got a HQ, which is our sort of digital arm at Channel 4. So I run. I think we've got 22 editors and a digital librarian. So that's sort of my day job. I love this stuff. I don't know, all of us on this call does. Like, we've grown up loving Blu-rays and special features, DVDs and making of commentaries, like all of that. So I think that's why, we absolutely love it. And if we could pick a job, it'd probably be working in that full time, getting paid an absolute whack of money, wedge of money. So, it's just the thing is now we're sort of like running out of films that have never been touched, and the newer things. I know you look at sort of like The Mandalorian and how that's leading into obviously the LED volume and the practical, and that's super fascinating. But a lot of other films outside of sort of ILM, if you like, and Star Wars, it's very much people, putting together on a computer. Like, if we were to do sort of a documentary on it, it'd just be like filming a load of geeks talking about what renders and what render farm they used and what 3D modeling system they use. And it's just like, would that be as interesting as a maniacal director screaming at somebody walking around in a rubber suit? Probably not.
Maybe in a quarter of a century or so, there'll be enough sort of nostalgia built up for those, and the stories will start to emerge. Who knows? It's a bit too long to wait though for your next project.
Yeah.
And Chris, what do you do for a living?
I do video still, unfortunately. No, I shouldn't say unfortunately. It's been... if anyone's listening. You remember what you said before there, Jim? No, I've been working probably for the last 10 or so years now in corporate videography. which I've got to be honest has its own sort of challenges and hurdles, and is quite entertaining. I'm trying to do my best to drift as much filmic material into that job now as much as I can. But like the others have said, we've been doing this for about 10 years now, so it all kind of happened at once. And I think, like, Gary, and I think all of us, per project, you're like, this is the one that's going to get us into it. This is the one. And here we are now, like a decade later. And like at times when I'm feeling high as a kite, I'm feeling like, wow, we've done it. We've covered those films we love. We've met those people we love. We've got the final word on all these films. And then at other times, I think to myself, when it comes to kind of like the financial and progression in life, it kind of feels a bit like I've just been doing a giant show reel for 10 years. No one's actually grabbed me. But no, I mean, we've been very, I think, lucky. It's been a bit of an Achilles heel, I think, having day jobs. And that it definitely is reflective of, like, the time it takes to get these things done. To which I always say, to be honest, if we weren't going to do these, who would? Or certainly go to the level that we've gone with. So.
Yeah, it is taking fans, isn't it, to come out with these projects at the moment. I'm working on my own documentary at the moment, and realizing that I've bitten off more than I can chew in terms of the time it's going to take. Because I was just saying, before you other guys started, Gary and I were just chatting that I'm still recovering from the COVID year when my work dried up for 4 months. And I probably lost a third of my income that year. And this is the thing: is these are hobbies, but we're also doing these, and you're doing these things to a really good professional standard.
Yeah.
You wouldn't guess it was a bunch of guys that don't do this full time.
But that's a frustrating thing. What we've seen recently, I mean, you've been reading like some reviews. Should have been amazing. The reviews of Robodoc have been, but they always put like, this is really good for fans. It's like, we are fans, but hopefully all of us bring a specialism to these projects and expertise. It's not just like, Bobby sitting in his bedroom in his pants watching a film and liking it and then going on, final cut and making something. We're actually putting a loads of work into this, and I think, like you just said, then
we use Adobe software, not
yeah. But it's kind of like, I think that fandom kind of like is a catch-22 thing a little bit, because I think people think when you say it's a fan-made project that it's just a bunch of nobody's a really horrible thing to say, but a bunch of people who aren't professionals who are trying to club together a little kind of documentary with a few talking heads and a few clips, best of, kind of like, MTV special. But we hope, obviously, that because we I think all three of us definitely are aficionado of film, in all different types of film, we kind of understand, hopefully, what we're doing, and also we try and get the best stories out. It's not just a fluff piece, really. It's not just about, wasn't his film great? It's about, and Eastwood will obviously verify this regards to his editing, it's about really getting, inside the filmmaker's mind. It's obviously getting into the editors, it's getting into the sound people, and how a film's made. It's not just about, we made a great film 25 years ago, aren't we amazing? And I think it's kind of, we're hoping to move away from being called a fan-made project to a cult screenings project.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, it's a real catch-22 because we are fans.
Yeah, because the thing is, there are professional programs, and I won't name it, but you'll probably guess it. There are professional shows out there that do feel like fan shows in the way that they treat these movies. I think you guys have taken the film and you've given it, the full amount of love and attention that it deserves. It's one of those classic films that, I've always been aware of. I loved it as a kid. I was scared of it for many years. It's, it's a super violent film. But great to see, you taking your time to tell the story. When did that become apparent that you weren't going to be making like a traditional 90-minute documentary and it was going to be a multi-part series?
It's been a gradual evolution, I would say, because I'm talking about this relentlessly at the moment to people, in work. And when trying to explain how things came along, I think it kind of happened organically, to be honest. We weren't going to do, as Eastwood had said, I think, or you were saying as well, Jamie, like, there's been stuff on Robocop before. We know that. And primarily what we try and do is look for gaps in the market, which we did with Pennywise, because that had never had a retrospective, made before, or even like featurettes. With Robocop, we, as superfans, we knew going in, there's that buzzword again, isn't it? Superfans. We knew going in, though, there'd been like the, Criterion edition, the trilogy box set in the early 2000s, and then the anniversary edition. So there'd been coverage of Robocop. But I think the initial format was going to be somewhere like, we knew it'd be about 2 hours, and it would follow the traditional making of pre-production, production, post-production legacy. And then really, how I say it's organic, I think it's just a testament to how everyone had their part in making that happen, of turning what was a documentary into a monster. Starting with, Gary and our other producer, Mike Perez. We started off with about 16 confirmed interviews at the start of the documentary. By the time we came back from our initial production, we had about 64 people recorded. So it's like, oh, that's a little bit more. The questions that were laid out as well, with everyone we got, it was obviously, especially if they're scene specific, it's like, well, we'll talk all about that scene. And then I think it moves on to Eastwood, really, with the edit. And Eastwood, I'm going to let you take over on this bit because you explain it a lot better than I do. But I think that was the final moment where it was like, oh, shit, this is it.
Yeah, I think, and that, by the way, that's like 64 people from the first movie. We interviewed people from the sequels. I counted the other day because somebody asked at work. My pal said, how many did you interview all together in 3 weeks? It was like 104 people for the three movies. There's some people from the TV shows, and then some of the guys got people outsourced, and I know Gary and Chris met with the cinematographer in Munich, so we ended up we've got like 106, 107 people in total. Probably a bit.
Half of your expenditure was on storage then, presumably.
Well, eight terabyte hard drives. I'm constantly like invoicing Gary for hard drives, but we again once we got everything in the can, it was memory cards and hard drives, and I had those backpacks sat on my lap pretty much on the flights, I think, because I was so scared that we packed everything up, but everything was here. So again, back and then transcribing everything in a way where it wasn't word for word, because I would still be doing it now. It was, just going through and getting bullet point statements. You'll be used to this sort of, Jamie, as well. Breaking it down. So then I'd create bins in Premiere, so where exclusively Adobe, so it's Premiere, After Effects. Audition. We used some sort of like Topaz Labs as well for some of upscaling some of the up-resing some of the stock and things like that. But yeah, it was throwing it all in the edit, organizing it by bins. I did a folder which was chapters, which was every scene of the film in linear order, and then I did a folder which was topics. So it would be Paul Verhoeven's antics, or it would be the suit, or it would be the sound effects, or it would be the bitches. It would be like just things that were just sort of more general. They could sort of fit anywhere in the doc. And then just getting on the phone with these guys and going, look, we can do something here that's not been done, which is covering every single scene in detail with exclusive interviews from those people that are in every single scene, and have it run, it's not the film with commentary, but it's the film that breaks in and out and it goes off on tangents, and we can do something here. It's going to take a lot longer. And I know it took me a while to convince. I think Chris was just like, whatever Chris is happy for. The more Robo, the better. We all love it. Gary was like, how long is this going to take, Eastwood? And I was like, 2 decades. And then COVID happened, and that gave me a lot of time to sort of whittle it down. And I actually enjoyed lockdown for that reason, being able to just sort of get your
head in something,
and not have any excuse to go out and not think I was missing out on anything. So. Yeah, I think, and then, what was it, back end of 2020 or early 2021, I got the guys around the house and we watched it, and I sort of said, does it work as this sort of running commentary? And they were just like, yeah. And that was like, good, because there was a lot of effort that's gone into that. But yeah, we covered all bases. We had so much archive given to us too. John Davison, the original producer, shipped out archives, documents, tapes, literally VHS tapes that we had digitized, stuff that nobody had seen. So I think, as Chris had mentioned before, we knew that there were Robocop documentaries, and we loved those docs. We grew up watching them. We knew them word for word. We watched them that often, but we knew that there was sort of, especially with like the Robocop archive and other fan sites or other sort of commenters out there, we knew that there's something missing. We knew that he was a bit of a tyrant. Albert was Verhoeven, and everybody said that it was difficult. But in those EPKs, in those docs, it alludes to sort of the suit and the temperature and the heat in Dallas. And we know that he was a demanding director, but we knew there's something that, especially when you hear about how he wasn't on sort of following films, the follow-ups. So we knew going into it, something's going to come out here. And I think we've put it all in the documentary, but that's what's been great for us, is so many like super fans, again, I'll throw it in, Chris, have been sort of coming out to us saying, didn't know that, and I followed Robocop since,
where did you find this stuff? Where
did we get all that from? Where did we get it all from? And so we were so grateful. It was just, for people to be patient, and we understand we've taken a long bloody time on this, and what the Kickstarter and the backers sort of thought they were getting, it's not like that at all. Like, it's 4 times bigger. We've got the sequels as well to cover still, so yeah.
But with a project like this, it would seem so much a lesser film if you didn't have, that certain interviewee. How difficult was it to find everybody and convince them to be a part of it? And did you go for the approach of trying to get the big names first, Verhoeven and Weller first, or did you leave that till later, or how did that come about?
I think we went for the big ones first, didn't we? I know we had Verhoeven early on, didn't we, Gary? Because you secured Verhoeven. So we had John Davison, the main producer, the guy who owned 50% of the movie. He was crucial. Mike Miner and Ed Neumeyer, the two co-writers / co-creators, if you like. And then I know Verhoeven was on early board. Was Nancy on early?
Nancy wasn't. No, she took a bit of a convincing. Nancy did. Verhoeven was surprisingly on quite early, as Eastwood said, probably. By the first, he said probably the fourth person to come on board, and then Nancy took a little bit of persuading. Again, I think
she was before the production, wasn't she? Because I think when we arrived in the States, I say we initially had 16 to interview, but I think actually when we actually sat down, when we landed, like, okay, we're here to go. Who have we got confirmed then, guys? It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the progression was very slow to start with on this.
Yeah, I think sometimes like with Nancy, I think it was a lot to do with management. Especially when we had the project we'd done before was successful, but very independently successful. So we didn't really have a background really, or kind of we were lucky with Fright Night because Tom Holland knew Clive Barker, and obviously then once Tom Holland was on board, everybody came on board for that. It wasn't so much the case we thought by having Ed that everybody would come on board. Ed got quite a few people for us, but as I said, once these projects start rolling, it is a snowball. People start coming on board then. But obviously, the big one was Weller, which took 5 years to come on board Weller. I mean, it was literally, stressful trying to get Weller on board and convince him.
We ignorantly thought we would be able. I mean, for years we had edits where he wasn't involved, and that's not from having tried. Everyone trying. But it's amazing now looking at it and the amount of comments we get going, oh my God, Peter Weller's amazing and this and all that. And I keep thinking that to myself, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's like, yeah, we don't need him now. If he doesn't want to play ball, then fine. We won't have him. We'll use this archive. And now part of me's just going, you fucking idiot. How the hell did you think that now?
You convince yourself, don't you? It's like a lot of things. I think we all convinced ourselves we didn't need him because we couldn't get him. And I think we'd all tried, even we'd gone through Nancy, we'd gone through Ed, we'd gone through Randy Moore, we'd gone through, every actor we could find who knew him. We'd gone through. I'd tracked him down in Germany at conventions, speaking to the people there. I'd been speaking to him directly on email for 3 years. He was always courteous and polite to me, but always said no. People are at shows when he's doing Q&As and they're asking him on the stage, and he was basically saying no to them. So it kind of, I think we'd given up, but we convinced ourselves, and then something happened, which I'm sure Eastwood and Chris will tell that story, where it kind of, we thought, shit, we've got him again. We were that close again in getting him. So it was kind of.
I know, Chris. Actually, you tried his manager as well in the Burbank studio, because I remember you had him on voice. You were super nervous, but he wanted to speak to the director, and you.
You offered $700, didn't you? Did you offer $700? And he laughed.
Oh,
that was my holiday money. Like, you'll take that, right? I was going to go to Barnes and Nobles.
Initially, he's done talking about Robocop, so we had to respect that. And then after 3-4 years, he started popping up in KFC commercials and was doing voiceovers. And I know that Gary was sort of like, he's doing stuff, so I can't be sick of doing Robocop. And then what happened is, we were back home. We had an assembly which had archive of Weller in there, exclusive archive that nobody had seen. But again, if that would have gone out now, it wouldn't have been half the film that it is with Weller in it properly. And there was a sci-fi convention coming up in Manchester for the love of sci-fi. We reached out to them and said, look, I'd love to showcase something for Robocop. We know that Peter Weller's a guest. Could we tie something in? And we're just trying to be cheeky, really, just so we could have some sort of like backstage access so that we could sort of collar him and say, look, we're massive fans, we want to get you involved, you've got to trust us. And what happened is they said, do you and Chris want to do the Q&A live on stage? And we were like, absolutely. So we thought we would get there, meet him, do the Q&A. We got there early because we're professional. Weller turned up 5 minutes late, came up, shook our hands. We walked on stage with him, and Chris and I, Chris did the majority of the questions, but we'd not introduced who we were. And then it went fine. He was super boisterous. Chris asked probably one question or 3 questions. I asked one. and then the full hour was just covered by Weller talk because he just talks. He could talk.
Once he goes. Yeah,
he's got like a lecturer kind of vibe about him, hasn't he? And he'll go on tangents, and you're like, oh well, the stage is yours, mate. Knock yourself out.
Leave you to it. But that in itself was amazing. The fact that we got to meet him and got to do a Robo Q&A, and then afterwards, I know the boys were content and sort of happy that we'd done that. And I sort of said, I'm gonna go introduce ourselves. And I know these two, knowing how sort of like boisterous I can be, were a bit nervous to say like don't ruin it. We've had a great experience.
He's going. No, he's running away. Get him back.
And I walked off and said, Dr. Weller, because he's a doctor and he likes to be called doctor. Dr. Weller, I wanted to get him on my side. We're called Screen's Dead Mouse. We're the guys putting the Robodoc together, and he sort of like looked at us sternly, gave us that sort of like Robocop look, and said, "You weren't filming that, were you?" And I sort of like, "Oh no, we'd never do that. We wanted to introduce ourselves, but the fact that we were running late, you were running late, we couldn't introduce yourself." And he was like, "Look, boys, get me in this documentary." I think because he knew that Chris and I. We know our stuff when we come to it, and we're not there like just drooling over him. We do it in the back, we do it off camera.
Yeah.
We do it in the background. But like we were never doing that. We were professional. We asked questions that he wasn't used to, and I think he sort of knew that was sort of part of our makeup. And when I know the day after Chris went and approached him because he was there for 2 days, and he gave you his manager's information, didn't he? Which I think Gary might have already had. But the fact that there was exchange and he put a face to a name. And then it was over to Gary then to sort of get him booked in, and there were negotiations involved with that.
Amazing just to be able to get in front of him, and then everything switches around. Because I imagine for people like Peter, and other stars that have been in these big movies, there's probably for every 20 times somebody approaches them to do a documentary interview, maybe one of those, or not even one of those, is finished, let alone successful. I think it's a real testament to you guys to have worked for this long. I think I remember first seeing it mentioned when you had your Kickstarter running, and your intention was to release it in 2017.
Yeah.
And you raised like
hashtag 2017. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And you raised like 30 odd grand. I mean, did you realize at that point that you'd bitten off more than you could chew for that? And
I think when the bill came in at about 250 grand, we kind of realised that these con artists, which you see in front of you now, we only raised 30 and we actually had to make 250. So I think we kind of realised that this thing was a beast. But as the lads would say, when he started evolving and developing it, it became a monster, really did. And I remember like when we was doing the outsourcing the interviews, and it was like we'd already done the main shoot, and I was getting invoices for like a DOP in LA, a DOP in New York, and I'm thinking, shit, where's this money coming from? But again, I remember like Eastwood messaging me going, "We found so and so who lives in New York. We found," and I'm going, "Fucking hell, really? Okay, just one more."
That goes back to that kind of organic nature I was saying about it growing as well. Like chicken egg. It's like we got in-depth questions, we got a wide array of casts, we've got what Eastwood's put down on the edit, and I think that's where kind of like when you had an inkling, it's like, oh no, this could almost be as definitive as it possibly can, like every scene covered. That kind of became, that's where the outsources stem from, apart from some crucial interviews like Kurtwood Smith, for example, who, you're not going to have a Robocop documentary without Clarence Boddicker there. But when we started going like, oh, we got that guy, and oh, we got that gal, like Cops or something like that, it was because we knew what it was turning into. So it was like, it just evolved it. So it's like, well, we've got to get everyone, possible. And I think we tried sort of covering some ground that we had attempted first time round, like your Rob Botines and whatnot.
I think it's cliche to say everything happens for a reason. I know it's really corny, but if it didn't evolve the way it did, and we didn't have obviously all the issues that we had and all the arguments and the stress, we would have released it 5-6 years ago. It would have been a 100-minute documentary. He would have gone under the radar independently. We'd been on a couple of Blu-rays, now sitting on the shelf or on eBay for a couple of £100 on most of our stuff that we used to happen to. But that would have been it. He would have just disappeared, and we would have been, talking about something completely different now. The fact that it's took so long, the project has evolved, and we've managed to get that deal with Screenbox, and we managed to get to 4 hours, which no one ever believed was going to get a 4-hour series. No one did. I remember when Eastwood first said 4 hours, and I remember exactly where I was at the time. I was in one of my schools in the caretaker's house, which is now a behaviour unit, and I was on the phone going, "This fucking guy's nuts." We're not trying to argue with Eastwood. I mean, in the end, just giving in, going, "I'll try. I'll speak to Lawrence, who's our sales agent," and then it just that if we were just given up and just gone along with it and actually bowed to the pressure we were getting off people, especially the Kickstarter people. And, fair play to them, they were right to be annoyed, but they were giving us a lot of pressure and quite a lot of abuse some people were giving us. If we would have bowed down to that, it would have been released and just done. I'm kind of glad now, even though it's taken all this time, that it's the best that we could have done. It's an amazing work by Eastwood, obviously direction by Chris as well as Eastwood. It's a masterpiece, really. That's not being egotistical. It just is. And it's the best thing you're ever going to see on Robocop, ever.
Yeah. Amazing to have that final word, guys. I mean, as fans and filmmakers, to have that final word on such an important film. I mean, fantastic.
This is
You've
the
got
thing,
to be
like,
happy
I
with
think
that.
people, they must realise, but they never vocalise it. We could have made our lives so much easier for ourselves, particularly for Gary, if we'd have just gone, right, 100 minutes, we've all got day jobs, we were juggling other things too. Like, I had to edit the Fright Night documentary before I jumped on Robocop. These guys were off doing Pennywise, they did the Robert Englund documentary, there are other things, we've all got full-time jobs. And it's like, and we wanted to get a trailer out for 2017, with it being the 30th, we put a trailer out, it sort of went viral on Twitter, and we had like Elijah Wood and Lee Winnell and Neil Blomkamp like tweeting it and sharing it and commenting on it. And it was like, and that's when the clock was like, shit, we shouldn't have really put the trailer out. That trailer, Jamie, as I'm sure you'll know, I manufactured that out of raw interviews. It wasn't me pulling from the documentary to stick in a trailer. So I think people watched it and was like, it's nearly done, and it covers all 3 films. It's what we sort of shot ourselves in the foot, but we wanted to get something out, if not for ourselves, but for the interviewees that had given us time and effort. We wanted to say, yeah, for the 30th, we're going to get your faces in the trailer. We're going to put something together. We didn't realize then that everybody were going to be banging on our door for the next 6-7 years.
It's kind of like a glorified sizzle reel, that initial trailer. When you really look at it now, like you don't go to a cinema often and see a 6-minute long trailer. I mean, Eastwood's got a point. Obviously, yeah, it did probably start the clock ticking, but actually, retrospectively thinking about it, and especially in regards to, the existence that we've actually covered 2 and 3 as well, at least it showcases, like, look, this is a thing, this is what we've got. And yet, ironically, we still had people calling us, as Gary said, con artists, like, oh, you just took the money and run, and you just want to be like...
Yeah, people don't appreciate the complexity, not only the complexity of actually just going and shooting 100 interviews and editing it together, but the back end of it, the logistics of all of that, the time that it takes to contact people, the finance, the rights.
I don't think we did.
It was a learning curve.
Because everything had been done under the radar before, and we were very lucky, so lucky before. Again, it's testament to the editing skills of these lads, where... and the use of footage that we kind of probably did fair use by not doing fair use, in a degree on the previous projects. Once we started going legit, God, it was a nightmare. It was just having to have legal involved and having fair use lawyers and insurances and QC. I mean, it was like, I remember, like, we were being lucky. We've had, obviously, a post-production team who've been brilliant, but getting all these like spec sheets in what we had to do and contracts. What was a contract? It's like, and then we had to give contracts to each other. It's like, hang on a minute, we're friends. And suddenly I'm issuing Eastwood with a contract he has to sign, and we can't.
Yeah.
It's like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
But
but like you say with
Sorry, Jim. You're in somebody else's hands with that as well. It's when it comes to like lawyers and legal firms, you're on their dime. So
yeah.
You waiting for them, and the amount of times we were just sat waiting and just sort of having to remind them to say, "Can we get that fair use assessment info? Deliver it so that we can QC it, so that I can do the other 3 episodes." And you just wait, and they're just off on a jolly, probably having a nice holiday with all the cash that they're earning.
Stressful. Because what people don't realise as well, I don't think, with the fair use route, it's not just a matter of saying, oh, we're not going to do this through the studio officially. We're going to meet a certain number of criteria which we define. You still have to pay for the lawyers like a minimum $5,000 or whatever to look at something, and it has to be like bullet pointed and listed out, and how many frames you're using, and whether you're using audio with it, and sort of proving that you need to use that clip there and you're not using it as filler. I mean, that's the thing is. It's amazing that you've managed to get this together, and it's entertaining. It tells a great story, and it looks and sounds great as well. You've managed to do all those things.
I think Pennywise for us was the learning curve, because Chris, we're not talking about Pennywise today, but that was a learning curve for fair use, because we chose the wrong lawyer. We chose the lawyer that writes the fair use policy in the US. So they were strict. I mean, they were proper strict. So, I mean, you couldn't show a 5-second clip without them ripping into us. But because we learned from that, I think and then we obviously chat with Eastwood about it, and obviously Eastwood stalled obviously the sheets we had to do for that, and obviously the documents Chris had to do. And I think Chris and Eastwood, I know for years was really conscious. We had many conversations about fair use, and he was really worried about it. Really, we all were, particularly with MGM. Particularly, they'd already been kind of in contact with us. We had a few emails and messages from them over the years when we were thinking, shit, we're going to be done here. I think when it went to fair use, and they are big Eastwood up now for a change, but when the results came through, I was gobsmacked because I know on Pennywise, it was a different lawyer. It was thousands of issues. That's not a reflection on Chris and Chris's crap editing.
Well, that was our learning curve. We had about 1,500 entries for Pennywise on an Excel spreadsheet. And we had somewhere in the region of 48, maybe even 72 hours deadline for the Citrus Film Festival. And it'd been like evenings working on that, and a 24-hour the 24-hour stint didn't happen at that point. And then, so, thinking, right, it's off to pasture. We'll probably get some notes from the lawyers. It'll come back and all's well, great. And then, there was this, emergency call between Gary and some of the producers, like Hank and Lawrence, working on distribution and sales. And, guys, have you seen this document that's come back? And I'm like, no. And so I was looking at this Excel spreadsheet on my phone outside a cinema, ready to go in. I was really looking forward to going to the cinema. It's probably some crap I was going to see. I look at this document, and basically they mark up on this spreadsheet of 1,500 entries of photos, videos, and God knows what. About 60% of that document was flagged red. You can't even adjust it. It's just you can't use it. So as everyone's going into a meltdown, I was like, no, I can save the day. This is going to happen. We're going to make that deadline, which we did, not without a few cracked eggs. And yeah, that was pretty traumatic. That was probably a good 24-hour stint on that one to get over the line. And I wouldn't, to be honest, I don't think that project was necessarily compromised. I think there might have been a feeling at the time well, we've lost all this stuff now. Kind of pushed us certainly pushed me into a corner to sort of think outside the box. And, what does Eastwood do with it? The TV screens and all this. So kind of I worked from Eastwood's kind of stuff well, actually, we'll do stuff like this. So I'm kind of quite glad how it turned out. But my anxiety was going through the roof at that point when I thought, I know how Robodoc works. And if we're going to go through this again, and it's exponentially longer, and the fact that it is working on a scene-by-scene basis, and you need it all there for context, God knows what that's going to be like. But fortunately, we had a change of lawyers pretty much straight after Pennywise, I think, wasn't it?
But I think, again, credit to Eastwood. I think the research he had done in fair use. I remember being at Eastwood's house, watching that first cut, and then I remember sitting there with Adam, our producer, going, that's fair use. That's fair use. And that was fun. And we did another one where we watched it online. I think Eastwood set up a thing for us all, and we watched it. And I remember sitting there going, that's 7 seconds. That's okay. That's context. That's narrative. I thought we all got so kind of adjusted to that. And again, when that first sheet came through, I was crap myself. And it was mainly okay, wasn't it, Eastwood? There was tweaks, wasn't that? And I think it took time, but we were lucky, considering the amount of stuff in there. And again, I think maybe it's the nature of the project, because it is a scene-by-scene dissection and it is narrative content. It's not just using stuff just for the sake of it. It's actually analysing a scene. That's fair use, that's educational. So but again, people going back to our original point, people don't understand the complexity of making a project, particularly now. And I think what's happened is projects have been released on Kickstarters over the last few years, which have raised £200,000, $250,000. Amazing for them. It's absolutely brilliant. They have money just to do what they want with it, really. I'm putting favours, and we were doing it for $33,000, and it's cost us $250,000. That's just on one. I mean, Pennywise was $150,000. It cost me for raising again, I think $30,000 on that. That people don't understand that as well. And kind of one day, I think we'll do a documentary on Kickstarters and never do them again. Yeah. And it's a shame, because I think they're a great source, Kickstarter campaigns, Indiegogos. I think when they originally set up, the whole point of them was for fans to support a project to be made. The problem, what happened with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, was the rewards being the physical rewards.
Yes.
I remember we did with Leviathan, we did do a physical reward on Leviathan. At first, and we raised a little bit of money. It was all about, get a thank you, a documentary, get a poster. But as soon as you start doing a Blu-ray, there's an expectation. It's a pre-sale, it's a pre-order site. But again, I don't think people realise that 20 quid you've given us How about 20 quid? 18 quid's gone into the production of the actual doc.
Yeah.
7 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've got to then find that money, and also now to actually post them. That's our fault. That's not a person who's pledging. But again, I think the world of crowdfunding has completely changed. Whereas it's become a shop, and that's why that's the battle we have. We're not Amazon. We're not HMV. We're a production company, independent, and this was self-funded, really. Well, the other 120 grand was 220 grand came from our previous projects, basically.
What happened in terms of distribution then? Did that come very late on in the project, or was there? You don't have to give me details.
No,
here, but
that's fine. Yeah.
Was there a pre-sale to finish the project, or how did you go about that?
So our previous projects were quite simple. Really, it was you make one, you raise the money, you make one, you put it on pre-order on the website, and then the money you make from the pre-order, you pay for the post-production and the production of the Blu-rays. And then any profits go into the next project, and you raise some money on Kickstarter, and that'll flow twice. It did work okay twice, that did. And then when we came to that delay we had between Brewster and the other projects, obviously it was Pennywise, The Hollywood Dreams, and Robocop. We kind of realized we needed money. We need to go legit to a degree. And I had a couple of friends, Chris's out, and obviously Eastwood, called the Buenos. And they were working with Eastwood on a Ghostbusters documentary, but they'd got a distribution deal, basically, or a sales agent got involved, and a post-production producer called Hank Stars and Lawrence Gornell from Unannounced Films. And then they messaged me, said, you need to really meet these guys. They're going to be good for you. And I thought, yeah, bullshit. It's the usual kind of like sale. And they phoned me, and they was trying to do a sale for Brewster, and it was already been released, and it was really kind of low. And in the end, I was, I kind of went with them on the project. So listen, we'll give you Pennywise, and we'll give you Robodoc. Hollywood Dreams was just in production. See what you can do. And they started obviously then, working their magic, and it took some time. Pennywise particularly was a hard one to sell. Pennywise, and again, it's strange because how successful the remake was, but the original back then wasn't. I mean, of course, it was popular, but there wasn't the action figures and the masks. Now suddenly, Tim Curry's Pennywise has become really iconic again. Everywhere you look in HMV, places like that, and toy stores, it's that figure. But when we were doing Pennywise, it wasn't that. It was a remake. It overshadowed him. So it was a really hard sell. But the kind of formula we do now is that obviously we've got the product virtually done in terms of the edit and obviously the motion graphics and the scoring and stuff like that. And then the post-production deals that we get then, that pays for all the kind of legal stuff, the legals, any additional support, for, say, on Robocop that Eastwood needed, the QC, the insurances, and that substantial amount of money disappears really quick because we have to meet certain criteria for the release. Unlike releasing ourselves on Blu-ray, we have to meet certain specs, which cost money. We have to go to a QC, we have to go to professional post houses. So we were lucky to get involved with Screenbox. We did our first one with them on Pennywise. Hard sell, real difficult, and they came on board for that. They were very keen on physical releases, and all three of us love physical. So the fact they did the physical on that was a real kind of big thing for us. They even did a VHS of it as well, which is strange. And then when they did Hollywood Dreams, we had a bidding war on Hollywood Dreams to Shudder. I fucking should have said that. Well, to say it, I don't matter. Yeah, I don't care. We had a bidding war between Shudder and Screenbox, and it was it was really kind of getting intense at one stage. I was having like meetings with Shudder, and they were telling me what they're going to do with it, how they're going to promote it. And actually, I'll be quite honest. I don't mind this going out. Shudder offered more money than Screenbox. But it was something, and I remember having this conversation with Eastwood, with Chris and Adam. Yeah, that's I forget their names. And I had a conversation with Chris and Adam about the money difference, and it was quite a substantial amount of money difference. for me, and I think
It
with
was
the lads
unanimous,
event,
though, I think, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. We felt at home with Screenbox because I think they were so passionate about releasing these things as kind of cult classics and physical media and the promotion they were doing. So we went with them for Hollywood Dreams, and we got a good deal. That's fair enough. And they jumped at Robocop. It was just, and I was surprised because they were a horror channel. And they wanted 4 hours, and I was really worried because I remember saying to Eastwood, you have to do 4 hours. It's an hour episode, has to be 4. And then typical Eastwood, one episode's an hour and 20, one's an hour and 8. I was thinking, you little shit. And I was thinking, they're going to screw us on the contract.
Specific. Basically, what happened is the sales agents had put pressure on Gary, and Gary's the one that has to face the brunt of this, and said we want it no more than 2 hours. I said it can't work. It's a scene by scene analysis. The film's nearly 2 hours. It can't. We're going to watch it. It's going to sound like Chipmunks at double speed if we do it like. And then Gary went to them and said it's going to be 4 hours. And then I've basically gone, well, it's 4:35 really, but what's the 4 hours?
Oh, I never told him
always
that bit.
pushing.
I never told him that bit.
I can slip in. If we can convince him to do 4 hours, I will just get it by with an hour 10, hour 20. And we did. No one even knew until they all got delivered. And then Screenbox were not fussed. I think they had it at 6 hours if they could.
I think it was the beauty of streaming, because originally when we were first talking to people, it was going to be, we're talking about HBO Max, people like that. It was going to be a channel. And I think that was the concern. If it's going on a channel, it has to be, it can't be any more than an hour, 48 minutes, whatever you want to call it, because obviously it's a channel and it's a slotted, obviously, time. Yes, sorry, Chris, yeah. When it went to streaming, I think we had more flexibility then. We hadn't, because as Chris East said, it was really weird because the key number always was 100 minutes on all of our projects, because Pennywise, we were adamant it was going to be longer, and actually it worked out better for us being 100 minutes on Pennywise, because there would have been too much in terms of like
it wasn't as
fluff,
it wasn't as in depth. It was
it would have been fluff. It would have been
yeah.
And I think we kind of we stuck to 100 minutes on that. We kind of squeezed over with Hollywood Dreams because we had to, because Robert's career's 50 years. There's no way we could have done it less. But yeah, so we've been extremely lucky with Screenbox. I did a meeting earlier on with Lawrence talking about obviously future projects, and he's in Cannes at the moment. And just about our next stage we want with Screenbox is to be an exclusive for Screenbox, whereas we don't want to do Kickstarters again. We want to be working with them for exclusive content for them.
To be absorbed by the corporate machine.
Yeah, we're quite happy to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Simulate us.
Eat us alive, please.
But if they are, without being big-headed, when Screenbox started, it was quite small. They'd had the massive success with Terrifier, but we've now been told that their two biggest kind of like assets are cult screenings and Terrifier. So that's great for us because we've got some kind of like for the first time ever we've got some credibility, other than just people like our moms and dads saying it's a great documentary, or our mates saying it. We've actually got credibility, and you've seen yourself. People have the response to the last 3 projects, particularly Robodoc and Hollywood Dreams, internationally has been unbelievable in regards to, especially the promotion in regards to PR. That's given us some credibility now. So we can now start going, we want to do this. This is how we want to do it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I answered your question at all then.
No, it did, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
this isn't even a podcast. I'm just, asking you these questions for my own information.
Yeah. Shit.
Thank God
It works for Shudder.
I wish.
We've been really lucky, and I think it's given us some freedom as well. Screenbox have. I can't thank them more. And when you look at what they released in regards to Walmart exclusive for the Steelbook for Robodoc, we've done a Steelbook for Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares. We got Kaleidoscope over in the UK doing it as well. Doing a beautiful release. I know that Eastwood's been working with Kaleidoscope on the sleeves. We had input on that as well. We've Pennywise. We didn't have any input really on Pennywise because it's our first one. We've grown a pair of bollocks now, as Eastwood always telling me to do many years ago, and we're actually saying, no, I'm not happy with that cover. I don't want it to be, and we've actually been able to shape that now. So I know Chris has been supporting on those as well. I know they last week Kaleidoscope, again, it's nothing major, but they sent us a sleeve, and then Eastwood changed the whole fucking lot, and they went, yeah, thank you. It's like they've had a designer doing that for them, and Eastwood changed it.
Yeah.
But
I'm always playing the bad cop. I'm always that dick on the other end going, We can do it better.
Yeah, well, good for you.
We want it in green. So that's your one, lady.
It's
Isn't it?
Eastwood's that guy in the
red,
restaurant when they
like,
ask how's your food going.
In green, just switch the hue, it'll be fine. And they did.
Yeah, so but we've had that freedom, I think, because we've evolved as filmmakers, that we've got the confidence probably now, and particularly on I feel I have, in terms of saying to them, not happy with that, we want to do something different, and hope that will evolve. We won't get too cocky. We want the best project because we know as fans, as professionals, but as what would we buy, what would we want, and and it's. I remember going we've all done it. I know we have. I went to HMV in the very rare HMVs that exist though, and seeing Pennywise on the shelf. It's just nice to see our stuff there on the shelf now. I mean, we did even before, obviously, Brewster, when you pull out the Eureka copy of Fright Night and there's our name at the back, all the Blu-rays of Robocop and our names on the back for the commentaries, because the three of us did commentaries for all three films. Again, which is a strange experience considering, we were under the radar at that stage. So yeah, it's just nice, I think hopefully our relationship will just grow and grow with Screenbox.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say it must be so satisfying to have the sort of physical artifact there, because it's one thing to be on streaming and to be on the front page. I mean, it's on Amazon Prime at the moment where I've seen it, and it's great to see that, but just to have that physical box on a shelf, and there is a whole audience there that is now curating their own collections of physical media. I think there was always an assumption, it'll be on Netflix or it'll be on Prime or be on Disney. Well, no, it's gone. It's been retired. People are now back into physical media again. I was chatting to one of the guys who runs the restoration work at the BFI, and he was saying that, I think it was Get Carter they did, probably the final physical release of that film. He said the sales were unbelievable. Yeah. Because there was this sense that this is my chance, to get my hands on this. Yeah.
And I think, what even better for us, particularly with Hollywood Dreams and with Robodoc over here, it's you got obviously over there as well in the States, but you've got the bonus features which you wouldn't get obviously on Screenbox. Over an hour of bonus features on both projects. I think on both projects there's like postcards, and posters included and reverse sleeves. They're all the geeky things that we love. You can open that and have the postcards in there and the reverse sleeve and the O card. It's just that's what fans want.
I think we're quite lucky timing wise as well, because you're saying as well about the streaming. When we started, I think streaming was certainly in its infancy when we started out. And I think what we sort of called the pinnacle of our experiences, like, yes, we're legit. We're on a bonus feature on these Blu-rays, which in retrospect, we didn't get a lot of money for them. But then, you've got the whole COVID thing and then the whole streaming thing. And, to be honest, even just tonight, I actually, because where are we now? So I probably shouldn't say this in public, but we're past episode 3 now on the Icon Film channel. So that's where I'm like, oh, cool. Start my 7-day free trial now so I can watch it on there legit. And I was saying just to my wife, though, it is, even though I've got a bit of a thing against streaming in some respects, being a physical media collector, and the issues you might have with streaming. It just to see, I said if this was released the way we did our first documentaries, with all physical copies stacked up in Gary's toilet to ship out.
Well.
Sorry, there's an honest truth for people, signed by my
wipe down your copies.
Yeah. Signed to a certain degree. But, I mean, just even seeing it, though, in amongst, you know what I mean? Like, if it pops up as a recommendation, I think that's cool. But you're right. And again, in terms of the evolution, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I definitely get the sense there's constant debates online about, Best Buy has now ceased to sell physical media. But then Walmart now is starting to do steelbooks. And I feel like it's kind of this weird evolution again now of physical media making something of a comeback or having a renaissance, but maybe for a more niche market. And so I can't imagine, like 10 years ago, you could have necessarily justified, I mean, even though they did exist, but, the extent now we're getting stuff released commercially on Blu-ray as standalones, I suppose it's a bit like you had physical media DVDs with all the bonus features, which we all love. That's why we got into it. Then Blu-ray, then it kind of moved to streaming. And I feel like certainly for the big studios now, special features, I've seen this a lot in reviews. Special features are a bit of a thing of the past now, getting a collector's edition. If anything, you buy physical media for picture quality. So it's quite nice to be doing this at a time when actually, you know what? Those things that were just extras before now, you've become the main feature.
Yes.
and then we've got extras on top of that. So we're not taking that for granted. You know, Eastwood's put in. I I did the one, but out of what, like, we got 6 or 7 extra features, which equate to about an hour and a bit of Robodoc.
Great.
So we're not taking that for granted. We know what the thing is. Yes, you have got a glorified, to some people's opinions, glorified extra feature as the main feature. But no, we're going to give you just that bit more. So
there's always room for more.
Just being able to go like, oh, cool, look, we're making our own ones now. We're not just part of another pre-existing release.
And go on, sorry, go ahead.
It does sadden me now where I do see like, oh, there's a 4K Ultra HD copy of a film coming out, and it's got 3 hours of extras, and you go, amazing. Like the Top Gun Maverick set, one of my favorite films of the last 10 years. I know it was a big hit. Love that film. Saw it 5 times at the cinema. Couldn't wait for the Blu-ray. Got it. 2 hours special features, whatever it was. It was all EPKs of like 8 minutes back to back. Yeah. And there's nothing worse for me, who likes to, I don't know, Gary's the same. We're all the same. We like to sit back and just enjoy it. Every 8 minutes, a credit comes on, and like you can buy Top Gun in wherever. Every
lazy.
It starts again. You get the same shots and the same intros and the same sort of like lower thing. And I'm just like, just let it flow. Like, why do we have to do that? It's so
no curation. Yeah.
Because they just obviously make those tailored for social to get them on YouTube and then stick them on the Blu-ray after. It's almost like it's social first. And we see that on Instagram, and it's the same thing. But I was just so disheartened when I got that set, and it was like, oh, such a shame.
Chris is showing me the very disc as we talk now. Before we go, guys, let's just remind people where they can see it. I mentioned, obviously, Amazon Prime here in the UK, but I do have a fairly big listenership in the US as well. So in what territories can people see it? And on what platforms?
So in the States, it's already out now on Screenbox, and it's on Blu-ray. I'll say tomorrow, but that's probably going to date the podcast. It's on Blu-ray on the 18th of October in America, in the States, which is Region 8 locked. If you're Canadian, I think you could probably watch that, even though it's Region A, or it covers your region. And then we have it in the UK on the Icon Film Channel on Amazon Prime. And that's coming to the Blu-ray on the 18th of December. And both sets will have the 60 minutes of special features.
Yeah, and we're just working on some deals, obviously, for a worldwide distribution. So we're looking at Germany at the moment and Australia. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get some traction on those, I'm hoping.
Great. Well, I wish you guys the best of luck. I have to say, you've been a real inspiration to me as somebody, who's dipped my toe into this world and had several attempts at doing it and has always ended up not quite managing it, but, I'll always push and keep going. So, thanks for what you do, guys. And I have to say, I was really impressed with what you put together with Robodoc. And I hope everyone else enjoys it. It's getting some great reviews out there already, and I hope they keep coming for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to say as well, I watched Inside Jaws about 10 years ago, and that inspired me. So
that's good.
I've seen your stuff. It's funny, isn't it? We all sort of see each other's stuff.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my chat there with Chris Griffith, Eastwood Allen and Gary Smart. Thanks to all of you for your time and for your work. I look forward to chatting with you again on your next film or series. Let's not leave it, like 4 years next time. Up next on the podcast, I have creature creator and head of Regal Robot and Tom Spina Designs. Spoiler there, it's Tom Spina. I also have 3 interviews in the bag with another 4 lined up, including author Paul Duncan. You'll recognise his name from those wonderful Star Wars Archives books. And the producer of the new holiday special documentary, A Disturbance in the Force, Jeremy Kuhn. I actually saw the documentary last night, and I have to say it was fantastic. It was with a fairly packed premiere screening at the Prince Charles Theatre here in London in the West End. And I laughed out loud probably 20 or more times, more than in some comedy movies that I've gone to see. It's very funny. You'll find out things you had no idea about. They've found some great contributors, some great clips as well. I'm going to be getting details of release dates and things on that when I speak to Jeremy soon. I've also got an interview coming up with Hollywood stunt pilot Fred North, bit of a legend. His publisher, he's putting a new book out, has approached me, and I'm going to interview him soon, so I'm sure he's got some fantastic stories. I'm still working on getting director of The Creator, Gareth Edwards. I'm getting closer. each day that passes, and I have a few more ILM and Skywalker Sound alumni on that want list, so plenty more to come. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you can do so for the next episode of the Filmumentaries podcast.
We are being way media.